G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Hey, I want to start by saying thank you. A little while ago, I put it out there to listeners who wanted to reach out, whether it was a portfolio review or a roadmap session. I've got to say, I am blown away by the number of people that are tuning in, that have been listening loyally. So I first of all want to start by saying thank you very much. We really appreciate it as well. It means a lot. And I feel what it does is it really puts the onus on us to up the ante with the quality of information we're giving you. And one of the big things you're telling us is that you love hearing from our team. So I want to double down on that. We're going to cover a fair amount of ground. So while you lend us your ears, or if you're watching on YouTube, I really want to implore you to kind of just take what we're saying on board, because for me, the nature of today's chat is what I call a bit of a triangle, the 3 Ps. It's personal development versus property development versus professional development. And what I mean by that is we've got a lot of clients that go, they're gung-ho on property. And I said, look, the only way that we're going to kind of scale up is if we can get more income. And I think there's maybe a little bit of a mental block or a mental gap here going, I think I've reached my limit in my income, and I don't believe it. Because I think if you can upskill yourself, if you can add a few more strings to your bow, your market value is going to go up. So if you see yourself like an asset and you are an income producing asset, just like a property where you might do a bit of a renovation or you might do a strategic bit of work on the property and try and get it revalued, the same can be said for your career. And I'm looking at Bernie, given your background in human resources, I mean, when you're put your employer or your organization hat on and you're looking for new recruits or new blood and you're going, this is what you're worth in the market, how does someone improve the value of themselves?
A lot of it, I think, comes down to first your mindset and your attitude. And I think we've said this in the past, or we've spoken about it, is we will often hire internally here, and in the past when I've recruited for other organizations, we'll take someone who has a wonderful attitude, can-do attitude, problem-solving attitude, and maybe doesn't necessarily have those technical skills quite at 100%, but when you speak to them, when you hear their reference checks, and you're like, this is a person that even if they couldn't do it, they put their hand up and they learned how to do it, or they engage with others to learn how to do it. And I think that element first is, how do you identify first where you're at? Are you in a mindset of, I'll let someone else do that, that's not for me? Or are you in the mindset of, I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to learn how to do it. I'm going to help add value. I'm going to be indispensable to my manager, to my employer, so they want to keep me and they see my value. Something I will say from a very personal experience being employed in corporate, going back to my cricket days, I was quite young in a coordinator role, HR coordinator role, and consistently at that time I didn't have kids, so I would put in the effort. I would be doing the hours, working sometimes till 6, 7 o'clock at night, not every day, but some days. And I did that for a period of a number of months, and it wasn't it was recognized in the sense of, Bernadette, great, thank you so much for getting that done. But the salary increase didn't come until the next salary review, which was 8 months later. And I feel like sometimes we have to be a little bit patient. We have to put the work in a little bit ahead of time, and then that payment will come. Sometimes naturally we want it now. So how do we have those conversations as well with our managers or our employers to go, hey, I really want to get to here. What do I need to do to make myself indispensable to you as an organization to help me get there? And having those discussions. And sometimes as well, that organization is not receptive. They're like, nope, there's no opportunity here for you to progress, advance. At that point, if you've had those discussions, you've exhausted all options in your current environment, it might be time to look elsewhere. But I think having those discussions, having the mindset and going, I'm open to this.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what we say when we're trying to get properties revalued. It's like, how do you get yourself revalued in the market? So just like a valuer speaking to a recruiter and going, where does my skill set take me in the market? I'm going to look at Damien and Nate, because for those that are listening or watching and you're unfamiliar with the crew here, Dan, you've been with us for, I'm going to say 7 years.
I think it's coming up to 8 years
Close
now.
to 8 years now, right? Correct. Because our business is 8.5 years. And Nate, you've been with us for
3 years next week.
3 years. Without giving away your incomes, and I know this is going to be a little bit personal, but this is the whole point of this conversation. From where you guys started to where your incomes are today, I'd almost say they're probably doubled. Yours would definitely almost triple.
Oh, mine's times four. Yeah. I started very entry level.
Yep.
So entry level income 8 years ago.
With no experience.
Yeah, with no experience. So that's where, I mean, when I was hired, I took a pay cut to the tune of around 30 grand. Started at an entry level salary because I was entry level. I had no experience at all. And then over 8 years, I've now looked, it's like times 4 my income, you know, obviously building my way up from just doing purely data entry. At one point, I was just delivering donuts for Aaron's clients.
And those were post-settlement gifts, by the way.
Yeah, it's for our beautiful clients, donuts back in the day when we used to see our clients a bit more. But yeah, so it started off there, you know, worked my way up. Every time you jump up that sort of, you get the experience and then, you know, we have that conversation. Where do you go from here with salary? And it just builds and builds and builds. And, you know, it's hard work. There is, when I was listening to you talk, Bernie, there's a couple of things that are sort of in vogue at the moment. Quiet quitting is a big one. People just clock watching, that sort of corporate mentality. Like, I'm getting paid this amount for this hours. That's all you'll get from me. Like, I hear a lot of people talk like that, but I don't think they understand that there's a difference between being salaried and being hourly, right? If you're an hourly employee, you're paid by the hour. If you work over that amount, you'll get paid more. It's in your contract. A salaried employee gets paid for what they give to the business. It can be done within 30 hours, 60 hours, but you will get paid for what you can actually give to the company. It's not based on an hourly metric. And I think people forget that in corporate.
Well, you're doing intellectual work at that point, right?
Exactly right.
You're paid for again, you're saying the value you're bringing. The ability to solve problems in a business, to me, is where you get that exponential kick up in your income. If you can be a go-to problem solver, and Nate's sitting in my left hand, but you've been my right hand. Bernie's been my right hand in the past. Nate's my right hand. And I'm like, you get to a point that I'm like, I'm leaning on you so much. It's almost like whatever you need at that point from an income perspective to stay here, I will match that, because the value you are bringing to this business, this organization, and solving problems for clients, there's an absolute, it's above market at that point.
Exactly right. Make yourself just indispensable to your employer.
How about yourself, Nate, from when you've started to now? I mean, you probably wouldn't have, I mean, looking backwards, it makes sense, but when you started in going deer in headlights to now knowing more than I do.
So I guess I am and you guys can probably attest to this because you've seen my growth over the past few years, but the personal, professional and property development, that has been my, I guess, journey. Came in here, uni, you know, very good analytical skills, but in terms of interpersonal, bit of an introvert. I'd say that's been my biggest personal growth on my journey in the last 3 years, my interpersonal. Relatively shy, but now, you know, I can pretty much talk to anyone.
You do talk very
well. And that's helped me professionally. Being a broker, you need to be able to talk to people and communicate things well. And yeah, that's what we're saying. You know, salary's doubled, because of my personal growth, which has helped my professional. And now I'm in the property market too.
I love it. It's I listen to. I'm pretty sure I listen to Diary for CEO podcast. So I'll give that podcast a plug as well.
I mean, top 10 in the world. It doesn't need too much of a plug, but sure.
Podcast a plug later. By the way.
Thank you.
There was a discussion there around what they call talent stacking, and if you're unfamiliar with it, I'll talk you through it. So it's when you add an extra string to your bow that then separates you from the pack, and I'll give it in a mortgage broking context. So at present, there's probably about 18,000 mortgage brokers across Australia. Now, the way to separate yourselves is if you can become a little bit more niche. So let's say, for example, we specialize in helping property investors. Bernie's weapon is, say, self-employed, commercial, for example. You then move into a different upper echelon of brokers. Now, Damien, myself, top 100 brokers, for example, you move into this next band of brokers going, there's only 100 brokers that put themselves in that top elite broker status, right? So now you're going from 18,000 to 100. And then out of that 100, how do you then move into that top, that top 20, top 30, top 50, for example. And at that point, you're going, I can solve X problems, i.e. I can break through what I call the glass ceiling in terms of property ownership. I can get you to 10 plus properties. I know how to navigate this. I know where we're going to go to. I've got lender relationships. We can do things that other brokers can't. There's a handful of brokers that can do things that we can't, for example, and we're chasing them going, hey, mate, if you can do it, we can do it as well. So this idea of talent stacking is, how do I make myself move up this pyramid that I'm in that top? And I'd say if in any industry, the top 20%, top 10% are earning the absolute cream in their industry, right? I look at buyer's agents, and there's so many buyer's agents, but there's one, Sam Gordon, for example, right? Because he's put himself up in that top echelon. He's solving problems that maybe other BAs aren't able to. Yeah. So if you're unfamiliar with that concept of talent stacking, I'd say get familiar with it, because if you're trying to move up in your career, how do you add that next skill set that then puts you at the top of the list, that when you're talking to a potential employer or to your line manager, you're going, but I've got these skills that I'm bringing to the table.
Yeah, and like this all like comes into play, guys, when you're trying to build a portfolio, right? So
perfect. Well said. That's exactly what we're trying to talk about.
Because this is all about leveling up your income to effectively be able to level up your debt. Because that's what it is. We buy property through debt, and to service debt, you need income. So what we find is you will hit a ceiling if you cannot increase your income. Now, income goes up with inflation most years. Yep, 2-3%. Great. That's obviously over time slowly going to build your borrowing power. We see rate fluctuations, which also help as well, some policy changes, but mostly it's your income that's going to be able to boost your borrowing. And if you can get it over that 2 to 3% inflation mark and, do 5 or 10% year on year, you will be able to go from buying maybe 1 or 2 properties every 2 to 5 years to buying 1 or 2 properties every year.
That's exactly what we're trying to achieve.
And I think there's that saying, it's coined famous by Tony Robbins, but it's people often overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in a decade. So, you might be on a particular salary and you're thinking, okay, by the end of this year, I need to get to here. And you don't get there, and then you get disappointed. But realizing that it's this long game, this decade that you're playing into, and being aware of where you are in your decade. Because I feel like when I was in my 20s, no kids, had you, but that was it. We could work till 8, 9, 10 midnight, and that was no problems because we were working together. Things changed when I had kids, 100%, and I wasn't able to do as many hours. So identifying where you are and what is the maximum effort that you can put in for the stage of life that you're in, and going and having that discussion to go, okay, it's not a year goal, it's a 5 or it's a 10-year goal that we're working together.
That's great, Bernadette, because look, I'll speak personally. At the moment right now, where I'm at with my 10-year goal, I'm really viewing the next 10 years, I'm viewing the next 2 years for me to build my income base, and then the next 3 years after that to go and acquire properties. I know I'm not going to be buying too many properties over the next 12 to 24 months. But what I am doing is building that income up. So when I can go and buy, I can buy. I'm not going to be limited by my income. I'm going to be limited by the properties that I want to go and buy, essentially. So I'm viewing that 5, 10-year sort of plan, and speak to your brokers, because this is what Aaron's really good at it. And you see Aaron's notes from calls. What do you want to do in the next 5 years, or how many properties do you want to go and buy? And then Nate, myself, Aaron, Bernadette will all work on the numbers to tell you, hey, here's how you have to get there. Here's what you need to do with your income. Here's what you need to do with potential structures, like trust, for example. But yeah, think for that decade period. Think what you want to try and achieve.
Because it's life, like we're saying. You're in a season in your life where Nate is single, right? You're in a relationship, for example. We've got kids. Mm-hmm. It's there is a clear flow in seasons. What are you doing in the next 5 years? Well, we're thinking about family. Okay, great. What does that mean from, upgrading your home? Because that means we're taking on more owner-occupied debt. It may put you out of the investment game for a while. But you know what? You got a beautiful house and you're not worrying about moving for the next 10, 12 years because you're in this house where you can maybe have 2 kids, a dog, and you got room to grow there as well. Maybe throw a renovation in the mix there, which usually happens, right? So if we can zoom out a little bit, ask the questions on what you're looking to do. And if you're listening, it will surprise you about how many people haven't given that thought.
Mhm.
There is a good cohort of clients that are going, yep, we know exactly where we want to be in 5 years' time. But there's also a large number of the population that have zero idea what they want to do in 5 years. I'm like, come on, let's galvanize a plan. I'm not saying they have to be locked down hard. This is 5 years, no flexibility. But there's got to be something that's on your radar as well.
ACD, from your experience and the clients you've spoken to, if you were to generalize, it's a generalization for people who are, say, in their 20 bracket, what they should be doing and focusing on, 30s, 40s, and then maybe 50s. Could you give me a bit of a flavor? I know it's a generalization.
No, let's do decade by decade, and let's assign decades randomly. So
20s starting.
who wants to do 20s? Not Nate. Let's get Aaron on the 20s. Nate on his 30s. I'll do 40s, and you can do 50s. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, cool.
Because we got a one.
When you're in your 20s, and typically a lot of the clients I've got in their 20s have come out of uni. So that you're 22 probably by the time you come out of uni. Average graduate salary I'm seeing at the moment, so that's circa 70, 85, sometimes 90K. So it's a couple of years. Two options. You're either renting a great place, or you're at home rent free. You're not rent free, but you might be paying something towards their living costs. So you've got the great income. You got a great income, but you don't have savings. So then it's like, well, how do you get into the market at that point? Low deposits. The crossroads is: do I buy my own home, or do I buy be a rent investor? I'd say generally at that point, probably be a rent investor. Because you don't need to buy your home at 20 something. You can't get into something of substance and value. So I'd say that's one. The rent investing part, I would go hard, low deposit, get into a growth asset, for example. It's forced savings. Because if you think about if you bought well at 25, for example, I'm at 41, what that 15, 16 years in the market would do. You've got time, mate, to go through cycles, ups, downs. You're not too rate sensitive because you're on decent income. You got some cash behind you. So that's probably one. And then as you keep going through your 20s, you might meet someone, or you have the ability to travel, whether that's live overseas for a certain time for work, travel, but your income can continue to go up because you're at that point where you can work hard, you can upskill yourself, and there's just roles that you can move into in your 20s. So
and if
I'd go hard.
And if you secure that property early in your 20s, you now no longer have to worry about being out of the market when you do go traveling when you're in your late 20s, for example, or whatever it might be. That's no longer an issue. Like, I've got a property already. Like, I didn't do that. Nate, you've done it. Yeah. But yeah, I remember being like my late 20s going, geez, this market's just going and going and I'm not a part of it.
Yeah.
If you can get in the market and that's not even an issue anymore, that's probably the best thing for you.
And I'd say avoid the money traps. So avoid the car loans, avoid buying the car. It's going to be very hard. It's going to be very hard in your 20s, something where I say it's about what they call real estate. So in your teens, the real estate's on your head. It's like funky hairstyles, maybe a bit, and on your 20s, it could be a bit of body art, for example, or it's the real estate you can afford to buy is a car to show your wealth. I would 100%, and I bought this, so I can talk from experience, a black convertible and it's a couple of souped up cars. And I was like, that was the most stupidest thing I ever did, but it's peer pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Best way to show your mates that you're doing well is to buy a new car. And I see that even just every decade we've spoken about, 30s and 40s and 50s, got to play the long game. Buy a functional car that gets you from A to B. It doesn't need to be flashy.
Yeah. Your 30s, Nate.
Oh.
This is your coming into this. Yeah. If we're thinking in decades, you'll be
because he's lived through his 20s, so he can reflect on the mistakes.
I know
what he did right. This is hard because what we see with a lot of clients, the 30s is the period where you're making probably the biggest steps in your career, right?
Yeah.
As Aaron said, avoid the car loans if possible. No credit cards, and just you probably at this point might have a partner. Got your own property, like owner occupied, heavy on investing if possible. That would be my advice or my guidance. But yeah, I can't speak on it because I haven't really been through my 30s yet.
But where do you, you're 26, in 10 years you're going to be 36. She's talking about thinking in decades.
Yeah. When I'm
on the spot.
Or in the next in the next decade, I don't know. I just want to keep acquiring property and keep increasing my income. Yeah. But if I'll be single or at home in 10 years,
And then I think that's the question. And then typically for the 20s to 30s, people typically are coupling up.
yeah,
Typically not always having children or starting their families. And then with that, I believe that it becomes very challenging to do both. And by both, I mean have your owner occupied and continue the investing journey. So despite the fact that we want to continue to invest, it's like, hey, I got 2 kids now and they're driving me crazy in this 2-bedroom apartment. We need a house, or we need a townhouse. We need more space. So I think in your 20s to 30s, that decade, your 30s decade, that's you're taking steps in your career, more responsibilities at work, and it becomes a little bit challenging, I would say.
I'd still, like, regardless of decades, I'm still going to say there's behaviors that we should be trying to, like, self-develop, which is the car loans. I've got to tell you, if I sound like a broken record, it's for a damn reason, because the car loans are murdering your borrowing capacity. The amount of times that even credit cards. So your income, you can 4.5 times your income is what you can borrow. But a credit card will downweight you by 5 times. So the credit card you can do heavy lifting on your income. The credit card is pulling you down even further. And I'm trying to explain this to clients, and they're like, but I've got direct debit set up on my credit card. I was like, I don't care. Like,
balance is zero.
Yeah.
Balance is zero. And like, the bank says you can max out that credit card tomorrow. What is more important to you? Points which you rarely use, or an income producing asset, which is property? I will take an income producing asset with property every day of the week, or shares, or whatever it is, over a credit card. If you can learn to live without a credit card, let me tell you, you are putting yourself in the top 10 to 20% of this country. I don't care how many points you have.
And one that I'm seeing at the moment is the novated lease, which is like, you want to level up. If you want to level,
particularly for like electric cars.
That's what I was going to say. Like, it's if you want to, the opposite of what we were talking about is leveling up. The bad debt would be you go from a car loan, then you get into corporate, and you go, oh, actually, I'll get a novated lease because it comes out of my income. I pay less tax. It's still a car loan. So the thing that I'm seeing now, and it's a little bit of a trap, is the electric vehicle. It's 100% pre-tax. It looks good on paper. It's still a car loan.
Yeah,
it's still a car loan.
How much are you getting back post-tax? The banks are looking at all pre-tax. It's a liability nonetheless as well. I'm all for being green. But I think we've got to the point now, I'm looking at Bernie, that if we can't afford to buy it, we're not going to finance it with a vehicle. You've got to buy it in cash.
I mean, we want to finance property.
That's what we want to finance. Yeah, that's
income producing assets. Yes.
And so to me, when we go back to this like career discussion, I will talk to the team. I'm like, if you think you're coming here and trying to get more income, show me what you're going to do with that income. But I want to see it go to property. And the property, when we look at how much properties have increased, how long it's going to take you to earn that sweat equity versus the property equity, and listen to that episode if you haven't. It just, to me, that the penny drops that point. You're coming to work to earn an income, to put that income to work for income producing assets. That cash flow in the future will then allow you to go and buy toys, to fund a bit of a lifestyle, whether that's travel, for example. Whereas most people are going, I'm going to go to work, trade my time for income, and then I'm going to spend that income on myself, which is travel, cars, for example. And the equation is wrong. And I feel like a real martyr with this conversation, because this is going against the grain from a mainstream perspective. It's like, how do you go and get the tax effective car lease? How do you maximize the points? Those voices are, they're amplified because that's what the masses are doing. They're the ones that are getting thousands of views on YouTube. Whereas we got to zig when everyone's zagging. We've got to be the secret millionaires amongst us. And that's effectively what this community is all about. People that are trying to level up, as you said, Damien. People that are just trying to go, look, I'm not trying to be flashy, but when we look at their portfolios, geez, mate, I'm looking at this going, that is impressive.
Can I give an example? One of my longest standing clients, I think 15 plus properties, are now doing property developments on them. So there's multiple properties on one site. I'll never forget, you have to look through bank statements and, he's buying things off secondhand on Marketplace and on Gumtree. And he's like, oh, no, I don't want to, live there because it was a bit too expensive. So he found like some cheap, like just so many things, so many frugal, which is so not sexy, but we'll find a sexy word for it, but frugal and like really mindful money habits that I think you can establish in your 20s. And I know Nate is fantastic at this. He gets me onto half price at Woolies, and he's like, I'm only buying these things half price, and like being so mindful about those cents. What's that saying about cents?
What's the sense? The dollars watch themselves.
Penny wise, pound foolish.
Yeah, there's quite a few of them, right? And if we can establish, and if at any point you go, hey, I've got really crap money habits, cool. Like, call it for what it is, draw a line in the sand. There's things that I saw growing up. My parents did this, friends did this. Great, it is what it is, but we can draw a line in the sand now and be like, we can make active and conscious change.
Yeah, and I can just going on to Nate. He's the weirdo at the supermarket buying 30 tins of tuna half price, which is fantastic. Like, I think it's a great habit.
But hey, he's just onto his second property, so something's working, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think for us, and then we'll go to our 40s, and I think the 40s is probably where you can start to do some rapid acceleration around. Now you're in the acquisition phase because you've got the income, which is stronger, right? Because you've laid the foundations in your 20s to 30s. So now the income trajectory is really strong. Family is probably likely to be set up in terms of you've got to base a foundation owner occupied. You know where you want to be. The hardest part there, I'd say, is by the kids, whether that's kids that are daycare, expensive fees, or kids that are now going to private schools and you've got expensive fees as well, making provisions around that. But to me, where the challenge then is lifestyle creep.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, and we say this, once you start to earn a little bit more, the clothes get better, the cars get better, the restaurants get better, the bottles of wine get better. And it's just like incremental. It's like, I don't know where my money's going. The amount of clients that we speak to that are on some heavy income, strong incomes. I'm talking, what are we saying? 250 grand puts you in the top income band in Australia. We've got so many clients that are sitting there that feel rich on paper, but bank balance, and I'm not speaking out of school, but they feel they're not winning the game. And they're looking at us going, what is going on here? And I'm like, yeah, I feel like you can borrow a lot, but there's not a lot of cash to work with.
Definitely. And personally, I'm feeling this at the moment, and it's the nature of tapping that card. You just don't see where the money's coming from. It's the nature of direct debits as well. You set them up out of that credit card that our clients hate closing. But I was looking through I've got to do an audit on my statements this weekend because I didn't even realize I had an Audible subscription, right? I went on to Audible the other day to sign up, and I had 6 credits sitting there because it's been coming out $17 a month. I just haven't seen it, right? So lifestyle creep, because of the separation from the cash through technology, it's making our lives a lot easier, but you've got to watch it.
It's also hard to unsubscribe. You got to go in there. Imagine trying to unsubscribe.
Amazon.
No, we'll make it hard for you.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
The banks make it hard. The one thing I've heard is you report the card as, look, this is controversial. You report the card as lost, so it stops all the direct debits. So now you have to consciously go back and reset up all these direct debits.
Yeah, good one.
But banks will hate me for that one.
Yeah.
But it's a hack to go, mate. If you can't help yourself, you have to stop the direct debits coming out, and then you actively have to say yes to whatever's coming back on that card. But he's probably laughing because she's going to do it this weekend.
Well, no, because we don't have a credit card.
Yeah.
And we've got buckets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But going back to the 40s, because this is the funnest decade when I get clients who come to me in their 40s, because let's say we've taken this sort of like trajectory of, you invest in your 20s, you get 1 or 2 or however many you can get. You buy that owner rock in your 30s for the family, bit of stability, you upgrade that owner rock. Then in your 40s, what I generally find is if you've taken those steps, you come to me and you've got equity in the owner rock, equity in your investments, your income's at a pretty good level. And now it's about planning, and it's pretty much the sky's the limit at that stage. And it's really fun to say to someone, look, you got about $500,000 of equity we can grab out. Here's how much you can borrow. What kind of properties you want to buy and how many do you want to buy, instead of just trying to get 1 or 2 when you can, which is good at the start of your journey. You get to dictate terms to the market, and to the banks. And yeah, what a better place, what a good place to be in.
Swung so far from your 20s where it's like, I'm desperate to get in. I'm scraping the barrel to try and get in. Every cent counts. And then over time, the pendulum swung to the point that now you're choosing what you want to do. It's like you almost have too many options available to you. And this is the challenge.
Paralysis analysis.
Which is at the 20s, it's like, mate, you can only buy that property at 90%, 95% LVR. We've got 2 lenders that will do it for investor. That's all we can do. And they're like, all right, no choice. And in the 40s, it's like, maybe we can strip the equity, we can debt recycle, we can buy SMSF, we can buy it through a trust company. And they're sitting there going, oh, we've got options available. And there's no impetus to act.
Yeah.
Because life is good at this point. Life is comfortable. And in fact, because life is comfortable, if we make a bad decision, it's going to set us so far backwards financially. So if we do nothing, it's safer because buying property is a risk. Right?
Definitely.
And making decisions are riskier. And so to me, one thing that Bernie and I have been saying is we actually just want to make less decisions. Decision fatigue, too many decisions. Now we're overthinking the strategy. The strategy should be set. This is how many properties we're looking to buy because we're working backwards on our asset or our cash flow strategy or our target. Therefore, we need to buy X many properties, and that's going to get us to our goal in life as well. Set our families up. And I think the other part that and sorry for jumping around a little bit, a lot of parents in their 40s are going, I've got to help my kids. And it's like, if they don't get into the market, I'm like, hey, mate, help yourself, get yourself so financially set up that now you've got an abundance of resources to help your kids rather than like you're not winning, they're not really winning. And it's like, we're all just, trying to get by a little bit from helping the kids. That will come in time. And I've got to tell you, like, the kids stuff only continues to get more involved because it's not private school fees anymore. It's like the bank of mum and dad when you're in your 50s, giving the kids $500,000 to get into the property market, which is pretty much, you read any article about Sydney, the only way for young Australians to get into the Sydney market is the bank of mum and dad.
And just the best way you can help your kids is just to educate your kids, set them up with these habits that we're talking about right now, set them up with the mentality that they will need to build their own careers, get them educated. That's the best way to help them. And then if you can help yourself and then set yourself up where you can actually gift them money in some respect or gift them some equity in a guarantor loan, then that's just even better.
Yeah. Hey, if you're listening and you're kind of wondering, what are the other listeners like? And people have reached out. So again, I don't want to speak out of school. So I'm just going to kind of keep the details just a little bit light to protect people's privacy. But just so you know the type of company that you're in. So a couple of clients that have reached out recently, I'm talking they've got maybe 3, 4, 5 properties. They know they've got the ability to keep going, good incomes, and now they're on a path. How do we show a pathway to accumulate more? So our goal is really to get them to say 8 to 10 properties with a view to sell off maybe 3 or 4, 6 properties, 6 times $500 a week. What's that, Damien? $3,000. $3,000 times the 50, 150. So a lot of people are targeting it's like 150 net passive. And that's the way that we get there is we build up the portfolio, sell down, clear the debt at some point, and then they're at that point, once they get that net passive, they're going, well, maybe one partner can choose not to work or work less or do some work that's more enjoyable, for example. But how do we use this income that they're on now to keep going? So that's one part. There's another cohort of listeners that are self-employed. That's probably where I feel I love working with them because they've worked bloody hard to build their businesses up and now their business is generating strong income. And it's again, we talk about pendulum swing where it's like it was hard at the start. Now they've built their business up. There's really good income. There's money sitting there and a little bit unsure about what to do, but they know they want to put their foot down. So there's a bit of conflict around tax advice or how they invest that money as well. And for a lot of our self-employed listeners, employed listen to the property versus sweat equity. Think about how long and how hard you had to work to eke out that profit. How do we do something smart where that profit is doing heavy lifting for you rather than you having to invest back into your business, more machinery, more team? I'm all for business growth, but this is just another avenue of growth for you, another stream of revenue that's coming in as part of your portfolio as well. And then we've got some really good younger listeners that are coming in that are highly ambitious, that want to go to the moon. And that's like, how do we make good decisions at the very start? And I feel like this is where you get it right. Yes, it challenges because they've got small deposits, Nate, smaller incomes as well. But where they're winning is the attitude. And they're going, right, I want to take control. I don't want to be the herd because everyone's sitting on the sidelines going, I'll never get into the market. And there's this cohort of sub 30-year-olds that are just going, I'm getting in.
Which is almost full circle back to the beginning where I spoke about attitude and mindset, isn't it, Aaron? In the professional and personal development, like when you're at work, if you've got that mindset and that attitude, can-do attitude that I am the person that finds a way, I will stop at nothing until we achieve what we need to. If you can carry that trait in all three of those pillars, professional, personal, and property development, that is what is going to set you up for success. And it's not in the next 6 months, it's not in the next 12 months, but it is in the next decade. And that seems like a long time, but we are going to be living a very long time. We are, we've got millennials here. Nate's a Zoomer.
Don't know.
Elder millennial. Yeah. No labels. It's very likely if health is all good for us, we're living till our 90s, till our hundreds easily. Like we have so much time on our hands.
You go, sorry.
Hold the course. Hold the course, guys. We're here for you.
Oh, all I was going to say was, where do you think the retirement age is going to be when we're 50, when we're 60,
We're to be working towards, the ability to work to our 70s, and I think for a lot
we're
of
already there.
Retirement's not the goal.
No, and this is what I'm saying. It shouldn't be
the goal, man. I don't know if I've got the right pin-up people around me around retirement. To me, I just don't see that being the end game. I think keep working if you've got the want, the ability to work, keep yourself mentally occupied. And if debt gives you a really good reason to work, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you can contribute to society.
Well, this is what retirement isn't the goal, but it might be a retirement from say a retirement from needing to do something for money and doing it for purpose or for choice. I think that's probably where retirement is like, I put my feet up, I never have to work again. You would probably just die earlier, to be honest. I think it is shown in the research. As soon as you stop working, you're on a downward sort of like path. But retirement is more like, hey, I can stop doing this 9 to 5, which helped me. And I was passionate about it, to do something I really, really want to do.
Cool. If you're listening, another part for us is we've never tried to upsell you into a course or any type of platform, for example. We genuinely just want to make our interactions far more enjoyable. So if you're coming to us to help from a loan strategy perspective, you've bought into our vision, you've bought into our energy and what we're trying to achieve here, and you're on the journey, just like us. We are all on the journey. People are going to be asking us in 10 years how we achieve that. And we're telling you, we are on the journey. This is what we're doing actively. So join us if you're keen. As a thank you, if anyone that's keen, copy my book, The Happy Home Loan Handbook. It's typically geared towards first-time buyers or home owners. But if you know someone in your circle that could really do with something tangible, like a book to read to get them into the right headspace, my gift is drop us a line. You go to our website, drop us an email at hello@ateliawealth.com.au, send us your postal address, and I will give you a copy of the book if you're listening, and maybe even a spare for a friend that needs it. 100% my gift to you, no strings attached. We'll even pay for postage. That's how much it means to me that when people are listening and you've given us your loyalty with your ears, I want to repay that by giving you so much value as well. The other part that we're getting a lot of engagement from is people that, again, want that property roadmap or that property portfolio review session, which we're booking in, which we talk about where's your portfolio at, what are you looking to do, and how can we optimize? Or if you're starting out, how do you kind of get yourself primed and prepped to then take opportunities? Because 2025, I've got to tell you, will be the year of buying. We are probably smack bang right now in the buying window. We're seeing it now. Everyone wants to get in before rates drop, right? Because that's when the confidence will be back in the market. So we are right now smack bang in the buying window. I've got a lot of clients that are looking at strategic parts of Australia that are looking at the undervalued, ugly ducklings, for example, but they're going, hey, look, once we start to get that confidence, things are really going to start to turn as well. So to me, if you've loved this episode, if you feel someone in your inner circle needs a little bit of a nudge to go, hey, look, here's the right intel, here's the right energy that you need to take some action. Like I say, the property market rewards action takers and decision makers, and the mere fact that you've been listening or watching, I want to say thank you very much. It means a lot to us. Drop us a line if you've loved this, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks very much.